This video we're going to troubleshoot some rear brake issues. There's certain precautions you have to take if you're working around your rear brakes and you actually want to spin the wheel to troubleshoot, which is what I'm going to do here. The situation with that is that if you jack your vehicle and you want to spin the wheel like this, you're not going to be able to put the emergency brake on because the emergency brake will lock the rear wheels. So what that means is you got to take a little extra care because what you're going to do is jack your vehicle up, use jack stands to support it or blocks, and if you can't safely do that, then basically don't do this procedure because it's unlike troubleshooting the front brakes. You can't use the emergency brake to verify that the vehicle will not roll. So basically, make sure you got safe jack stands, block your front wheels, the vehicle's in park, but the emergency brake is not on. So what I'm going to do here, now that I've got all that done, I'm spinning this wheel. And you can hear that noise and probably see the amount of force I have to put on this. So I got a problem back here. That should spin way freer than that. And you can actually hear it. Now, if I had just changed the brake pads on this vehicle, that might be understandable. I'd be thinking, well, maybe those pads haven't retracted into the caliper, they're still wearing down. But that's not the case with this vehicle. I've driven this thousands of miles since I changed the brake pads, and there wasn't any issue. But I've noticed this lately. I could hear this when I would take this vehicle out. So anyways, now as I say, everything is supported and blocked underneath so that if anything happens to this vehicle, it's not going to fall on me or a part of my body. I will remove this wheel. I'm going to retract the pads into the caliper. I'm going to look for pads that might have stuck and worn or a sticking caliper. For starters here, I'm going to need a new set of rotors. These are in terrible shape, but that's not my issue. The pads are not to the point that they would cause the grief that I'm experiencing, so I'm going to retract the pads into the rotor, release them from the rotor here. I actually can't even turn that unless I put two hands on it. And I'm going to retract these pads, take the pressure off of the rotor, and then see if that'll spin free. I will be changing the pads on this. They're quite worn, as you can see, a lot of space in here. I've retracted them in with the C-clamp. Just make sure when you're doing this, the rear of the C-clamp is not on your brake hose. Right there. You want it on just the metal, the steel part of the caliper when you're retracting those. I've taken the C-clamp off, and you can see now that with the pressure from the pads released, that is spinning no problem. So I think what I'm going to do now is take off that caliper, grease up these slider pins. I actually have a video posted on how to do that. So I'm going to start there. You can actually see that I can move with the pressure off of the brake pads, that I can move the caliper in and out. So the slider pins aren't seized, but they're not moving all that smooth either. Should be a little smoother than that. Just in case that you don't actually get a chance to watch that video I have on the lubing the slider pins, you're going to want to loosen these off before you remove your caliper via the caliper mounting bolt back here, because if you just take those caliper mounting bolts off, those two bolts, then you're not going to be able to release this unless you take the caliper right off and put it in a vise or something. So the brake pads were replaced. I'll put a new rotor on this. Spin the wheel. It's spinning pretty free. It's going to be a very short period of time now where the pads, the brand new pads, are going to have to wear a little bit into the rotor. But you can see that that's considering that everything is new on there and hasn't really broke in. Don't have that sound we had before with the grating. Now the problem here might have been the pads and the rotor were in bad shape, but more than anything I'm suspecting it was those caliper slider pins. The caliper would not really retract as easily as it should, probably keeping the pads against the rotor. So anyway, now at this point, always a good idea, operate the emergency brake, which I'll do. Just to verify the operation of everything. Emergency brake is operated. Another point too, whenever you're doing this, working around, don't put your hands underneath the wheel just in case something fails. So I'm trying to turn that from the side. Emergency brake is obviously operating good. I'll release it. Emergency brake is now released. We're spinning again. Doesn't hurt either to have a helper operate the brake. I already did this, but I lost my helper. Operate the brake, turn it. When the helper releases the regular brake I'm talking about, then it should spin again. Anyway, I have other videos on how to replace pads and stuff like that. I'm going to do one on replacing a rear rotor also, but if you don't get anything else out of this video, big thing is to remember, if you're working on your rear brakes, take extra precaution, because if you want to spin it to test, you're not going to be able to operate the emergency brake, and therefore you got to make sure that take extra precautions that the vehicle doesn't roll.